Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really delighted and pleased to have the chance to introduce a fellow advisory board member of the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy for the keynote address, the Honorable Anna Diamantopoulou. Her political career began in 1984 when she became the youngest prefect ever for the local administration. 2 years later, in 1986, she was appointed as Secretary General for Adult Education and later for Youth. Ms. Diamantopoulou was appointed President of the Hellenic Organization of Small and Medium-Sized Undertakings and Handicrafts in 1993 and went on to begin her parliamentary career in 1996 when she was elected as a Member of Parliament for the district of Kozani. During this time, she was also appointed Deputy Minister for Development in charge of privatization and industrial restructuring, a position she held until 1999. Ms. Diamantopoulou then served as European Commissioner for Employment, Social Affairs and Equal Opportunities from 1999 until 2004. Member of the Parliament for Athens from 2007 and 2009, Greek Shadow Minister of Education from 2007 until 2009, Greek Minister of Education, Lifelong Learning and Religious Affairs from 2009 until 2012, and Greek Minister for Development, Competitiveness and Shipping from March until May 2012. Ms. Diamantopoulou is currently a Member of Parliament in Greece for the Hellenic Socialist Movement, as well as a very active member of the Advisory Board for the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. The lecture topic that she's chosen today, I think, fits in excellent, not only to the conference as a whole, but also in the context of the founding of the Organization for Youth Education and Development, Intergenerational Conflict and Solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for the Honorable Anna Diamantopoulou. Thank you.
I knew that the audience would be students, so I tried to do something between a lecture and a speech. The intergenerational conflict or intergenerational solidarity. This is a major political issue. Europe is undergoing a crisis that has hit young Europeans with an unprecedented levels of unemployment and a risk of social exclusion and poverty. We may be facing an unmitigated economic and social disaster if we do not deal as soon as possible with the issue. Are today's youngsters in Greece or in Balkans or in Southern Europe a scared generation, a lost generation, a postponed generation? Intergenerational solidarity involves a complicated web of relationships between generations, both within families, but in the wider societies. It can be a social equalizer. Instead, we are afraid that it becomes day by day to instead of being a generational solidarity issue, becomes a generational conflict situation. This is our challenge we had ahead, and it is not a long-term policy issue. We have to deal with it now. The main theme and the messages of my presentation is the following. Until now, the issue of friction between generations has been raised within the context of population aging. The check is on the table. Today's middle-aged and relatively secured baby boomers have consumed and wasted future resources, inheriting a huge debt to the next generation. The third issue is that this conflict between generations is an issue which raises in Greece. It is a Greek problem, it is an Italian problem, it is a Spanish problem, or is it a general, or it is becoming day by day, and we understand that it is a European problem. And finally, to avoid potentially severe social consequences and political implications, look at the results of elections and of the new parties which are rising in the majority of member states. In order to avoid this, we must address the issue of youth perspectives and prospects now. The structure of my presentation. First, I will touch upon the issue of the intergenerational solidarity, the context and an overview. Second, discuss how the financial crisis is turning into a social crisis and what it means. Third, we will discuss policy priorities, priorities at the EU level or priorities at the national level, because I believe that it is very fundamental in the way that we are going to avoid a further split of generations. Let's try with the intergenerational solidarity. Solidarity is not just an absurd word. It means supporting mutually beneficial exchanges, monetary and non-monetary, between generations. It can be public, and it's public transfers between generations, retirement, benefits, health, long-term care, and other services for the old people and for the young people. And of course, private transfers between generations, substantial, although less evident and tangible. And it has to do with the way that the family works, and it's quite different in the South and in the North. And we must admit that part of the way that we avoid the tremendous impact of crisis in our societies is that we are still, I mean in the Southern societies, that we still have very strong family links. What is the policy issue? We have failed collectively to achieve a balanced approach for policies resulting into a fair burden across generations. It does not mean that it happens in all European countries, but it is the case in all countries which today have a real crisis. So it means something, and we'll see it then with figures. Let's have a look to the demographics in Europe today. Europe's age profile is expected to change dramatically. Europe is graying. The grey wave is sweeping southeastwards, and the grandparent boom is approaching. What we have is increases in longevity, continuing low birth rates, and at the same time, baby boomers are now reaching retirement age. Now, just parenthesis, here the role of immigration, the two previous speakers have already referred to that, how important the immigration issue is in Europe's future. You can just see a few numbers here. The old age dependency, by 2060, nearly 1/3 of the population will be over 65. The old age dependency ratio will double. Europe as a whole, from 4-to-1 ratio, will have to 2-to-1. For the ones who do not understand, that means for 4 workers there is 1 pensioner. Now in Greece it is only 2-to-1. Every 2 pensioners there is 1 working person. Is it sustainable? We have already discussed about sustainability. The share of young Europeans has declined steadily over the past 25 years, expected to fall even more sharply. Here, in these graphs, we can. Do we have this small? No. The following graph shows that the inactive population age 65 and 65 and above, and here you can see it is as a percentage of the employed population aged 15 to 64. So we can see some terrifying figures, and you can see different countries. You can see the Balkans, the South, the Nordic countries, and the Central Europe. The aging and economic consequences. Considerable fiscal pressure from aging populations. Challenges for public finances sustainability. It is not just a matter of banks. It is not just a matter of borrowing and lending money. It is this terrifying perspective of what is going to happen in 20 or 30 years if we don't change the trend. According to the OECD, Public spending for pensions, health, and long-term care is expected to outgrow the economy 40% faster than the national income. This next graph is interesting because it is from OECD, it is from all the countries. And here what you can see, what it shows is a variety of countries, in a variety of countries, the percentage change in the working age population between 1210 and 1215. So we can see in Saudi Arabia that there is a huge increase. In Egypt, there is a huge increase. So they have young population which is coming. And in the other end, Japan has a huge decrease. Poland, South Korea, Russia, Germany, Italy, Greece, Singapore, Austria, the majority of European countries are on the left side. What does it mean? That in a few years, other countries have to ensure jobs for people, and other countries have to ensure people for jobs. So it is not the same problem everywhere. Let me now give you a brief overview of status of the situation of young people in the European Union. There is an increase in the number of young people who are not in employment, not in education, and not in training. Unfortunately, we have already found a name for these people. It is, maybe you know the European jargon now, it is the net people. I mean, they are nowhere. We are faced with an alarming situation of unprecedented numbers in the unemployment rate. There are two countries which are above 50% concerning youth unemployment. There are three countries about 30%, and the youth unemployment as an average is 15.5% in 2008 and 20.5% in 2012. But it is as an average at the European level. We have a rise in long-term unemployment, and young people are overrepresented in temporary works. So, young people are at a serious risk of social exclusion and poverty. And we can see now, it is not part of my presentation, but it is interesting to see all the graphs and the data, that the more people are unemployed, the less they participate in the political and social life. So, more exclusion, less participation in democratic processes, social discontent, and instability. It is terrifying for a society if we have such a decrease in the participation of young people in the social and political issues. Now, financial crisis, because this is the situation concerning the demographics and the youth unemployment. Now, we can see particularly what the financial crisis, how the financial crisis has turning the economic, has been turned into a social crisis. It is that the young generation is particularly hit by the risk of poverty and the exclusion trap. The young are at most risk of long-term damage to their careers and livelihoods, and political and societal developments will reflect the effects of exclusion. Let me now go to Greece, not only because it is my country, and as a minister I have this experience of the crisis, and I have seen the change in people's life from the one day to the other, because it is completely different in a society where there is a problem of poverty, of exclusion, of unemployment, and the whole society and the government tries to increase the indicators, to be better, and it's totally different to have a status and suddenly in 6 months' time people see their lives to be destroyed, and this not as a percentage of the population, but 90% of the population. So I'm referring to Greece because I hope not, but it could be pictures from the future for the other countries. Since 2009, Greece has lost 25% of its GDP in 4 years. To give you some comparison, it was 27% in Great Depression during the Great Depression in the United States, and it was 22% during the Weimar democracy. So from 1928 to 1933 in Germany, the loss in GDP was 22%, and the democracy collapsed. What does it mean? You can easily see, I mean, it is now there is lack of liquidity in the economy, destabilization of the banking system, widespread failure of business, multinational companies leaving the country, dramatic increase in unemployment, especially among young, increase of poverty and gradual dissolution of the middle class. It is not anymore gradual. Alarming degradation of public goods and the permitting sense of insecurity. There is a big number of hospitals who really do not work. Rising levels of social discontent, brain drain, youth immigration, brain drain as one of the major problems and risks in our societies. I would like to focus and pay some attention to the last ones, youth unemployment. 55%. Youth unemployment has lasting effects, and it is higher risk of future unemployment, prolonged period of unstable jobs, many things. But you must never forget that for a young person who is many years in unemployment, it means many things for his or her future, even if the economy changes. And of course, there is economic and psychological impact, many commitments of suicides, and many particular problems. I think we all agree that unemployment coupled with frustration and a lack of prospect, and this is the major problem now in the crisis, that for the time being there is no feeling of way out, it can be an explosive mix. It fuels unrest and political extremism. The youngs are victims of uncertainty from the deep recession and the economic crisis. This has implications for democratic engagement and civic participation, and as we will see from the recent elections results, not only in Greece, in Italy as well, risk of radicalization. Just to give you an idea in the brain drain, what Mr. Buzek had said, there was a huge increase in Spain concerning people who want to learn German. I have some figures now only with German, since we are in Germany. 24,000 people left Greece last year to live and work in Germany. Almost double the number from 2010, and in 2010 it was double from 2008. Greek doctors in Germany account for the second largest after the Austrian ethnic group, and this is the case only in 4 years. Of course, the implications in the Greek society are really severe. No need to go in details, but you can just have an idea. And this economic crisis, which has been a social crisis, in the end has become a political crisis. Now in the elections, I'll give you here only the numbers of the people, of the young people up to 34 years old who have voted for extreme left or extreme right. And as far as the radical left is concerned, it's the 37%. This was a very small left, radical left party. For 30 years, it is an old party, it had 4%. Suddenly, it had, in a few months, it had 28%, and now it is first in the polls. The most scary thing is the second one, the Golden Dawn, which is a purely Nazi party. So in a country where everybody is against Germans now because for all these negative stereotypes who rise and it is the result of populism. Now, in this country, we have a Nazi party, and it has 16% from young people, concerning young people. Now, the document, what I was saying before about the radicalization and what is, if this is just a Greek phenomenon or it could be something in other countries as well, we can see in this, we can see this fear, we can see this terrifying perspective in this graph. This graph shows vividly how the crisis is hitting youth. It shows the percentage change of needs in various countries. Greece is on the top, but we can see Balkan countries and the south, which is Greece, Romania, Cyprus, Ireland, Bulgaria, Spain, Latvia, Italy, Lithuania, Slovakia, etc. So when there is such a huge gap between the young and the other generations, I mean, nobody can predict what is going to happen. Just to give you some ideas of Italy, 50% of the country's top business leaders and politicians were 60 plus. So the Beppe Grillo achievement, the Beppe Grillo success, has to do with the young people as well. Now, in Beppe Grillo's, Grilli, as they call them, parliamentarians, is less than 43 years old. Youth unemployment is 37%. I'm referring to these common everyday terms, gerontocrazia, raccomandazioni, etc. Maybe there are some Italians here. There were all these issues having to do with the political system. This is the case in Greece, because we don't pretend, I don't pretend that this is a European problem. It is a national problem with national politics, which has become dramatic because of the European problems of architecture. But how we can see that the New Star, the Five Stars movement, which has already 25% in the polls, it is an answer, it is a reply of young people to the lack of hope, to the not participating in the economic and political life, and nobody knows how this radicalization will move on. The same in Spain. You can easily see some numbers here. Youth unemployment 55%. We have an increase towards Germany from 45% to 52%. And of course the Indignados, the movement which started from Spain, spread throughout Europe, and the last week we can see we have already seen more than 40 big rallies in Portugal. Policies and principles. Since the late 90s, both the Commission and the European Parliament have recognized the problem, because it is not just a new problem, it is not just because of the crisis. And many policies have been in place. I could, since I have been a Commissioner for Employment and I follow it day by day, Europe has tried a lot. I mean, there are some general cap policies, but of course it still remains a national problem, a national policy problem. And this is one of the major problems at the European level. We have a monetary union, we have a single market, we have different economic policies, and we have in many countries different employment policies. So the final result is not so good as we can imagine. I'm just referring to the last initiatives from the Commission, which is the Youth Employment Initiative, which is a guarantee for each young European in order to have the opportunity to participate either in employment task or in apprenticeship or on a training or having a training opportunity. It is a positive, and it has a budget of 6 billion. There is another initiative, which is a social investment package, which urges member states to shift their focus to investment in human capital. This is good as well. There were many efforts all these years from the Lisbon Agenda with particular goals, targets, policies, best cases disseminating in all countries, cooperations. I don't know what the real result was, since a few years after the crisis, everything has been collapsed. So, on the one side, we have all these efforts on policies. There are the active and passive policies at European and national level. And the European Union and the country, the member states, invest on these policies. The real question and the real answer is that whatever policies we have, if the economy does not work, if the economy does not produce jobs, there is no way out. There is no real answer to the problem. What I believe is that in order to implement fundamental principles and to change the way we work or we talk until now, we have to focus on a few areas. First, there must be a priority horizontally we need to have a priority on in all policies concerning the access, concerning the impact on young people's lives. So whatever is decided, we must have an assessment what is the impact in young people's lives. Secondly, we need to find ways to increase participation of young people and of all ages, but particularly of young people, in democratic and social life. And there is a need of a generation, of our generation, of my generation, to give back, to sacrifice if it is so required. And particularly for the countries in crisis now, I believe that any austerity measures should not impact in the same way in all ages. And there is a need for political choices on that. It is true that what we need and what is the basic answer, it is growth. And it is urgent for Europe to move beyond austerity and halt recession because of the monetary union and because of the single currency, which has been a big success. Even now, I insist that it's a big success. Because of this policy, the states themselves cannot change their policies, cannot come out of the crisis, and cannot have growth perspective. The only thing that they can offer to their people now, it is austerity. So in order to move for growth, I think that we have to change the role of the European Central Bank and to have European investments in all member countries concerning European interest. For example, European investment in European nets. In the end, I think that it is a necessity to have a very concrete idea of what this crisis, of what the implication of this crisis to the young generation is, because these are the people who are going to be the leaders of the new generation. In order to move forward, we need to take as a priority in our policies the young generation, and to be not to be neutral to focus on new generations and to organize policies concerning, first of all, jobs and secondly, participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an excellent way of beginning the ceremony for the Organization for Youth Education and Development. We really appreciated that, and we look forward to the other presentations that are coming now before we begin the panel discussion. So thank you again very, very much. If we could have a second round of applause for Ms. Diamantopoulou. Thank you.